Sometimes when you spot a trend of something that's going on elsewhere, you actually don't have to reinvent the wheel. I've always been obsessed with the customer. I feel like every idea I've ever had has always started and ended with what the actual customer wants, otherwise you're just working in your own bubble. If you can't fund it, was it really a good idea?
So you can fund a good idea?
I think you can always fund a good idea. Do you not?
So Thea Green, lovely to have you on the Boardroom.
Delighted to be here.
I'm fascinated to hear about your story. I'm like a typical Aussie bloke, or maybe even just typical bloke. I don't know much about nails.
It's okay.
But I do know that you started Nails Inc. and that it sounds to me like you saw the idea in the United States, imported the idea successfully to the UK, and then exported it again somehow back to the US.
Correct.
And then sold out and living happily ever after. Is that roughly where you're at?
I don't know if the end is quite the end, living happily ever after, but the rest is completely accurate, yes.
You know, sometimes I've talked to people about the idea of bringing in ideas or technology or something that's worked in another market.
Yeah.
You know, and successfully, almost like, you know, you can disrupt by price or product,
Yes.
but also geographically. So, you know, you may not be doing anything at all new, but
Yes.
you're just taking something from one place and bringing it to another.
Yeah.
I mean, what can you tell us how you spotted these nail bars and why they didn't exist in the UK and how hard it was to do that?
Of course, and I think that is right. I think sometimes when you spot a trend of something that's going on elsewhere, you actually don't have to reinvent the wheel, and that's a really easy way to actually set up a business. And you know that if it's already working, particularly in a market like the US, which is so similar to the UK in so many ways, obviously, you know, different size, I think it is quite an easy way to work out that you've actually got potentially a viable business. But yeah, so we set up in 1999. In the UK, there were no high street nail bars. Obviously now there's nail bars absolutely everywhere, so it's like the unimaginable. But there were no nail bars, and really the idea was to bring nail bars, but to take it and brand it and bring our own range of product at the same time, because the nail bars in the US were quick and efficient, often in kind of first and second floors, but they weren't branded. They didn't sell product. So we very early on wanted to have a product range so that we could sell product outside of the bars and actually build a brand.
So you spotted two things. There was that there were no nail bars in the UK.
That was almost the smallest bit, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Also that would be also an opportunity then to sell branded product.
Exactly. Yeah. The aim was always like, you know, business plan one always said, we'll sell this product to John Lewis, Boots, department stores, Superdrug. That was always the plan. So the brand had to be built so that the brand could live outside of the nail bars. So the nail bars for us were always a profitable, you know, revenue stream, or planned to be. But the aim was that the way that you would globally be able to bring this brand, you know, out in the UK, outside of the nail bars, into retail, and then later into other retailers globally, would have to be product. More because running nail bars is very labour intensive. In the UK, really, there were sort of like spas, and maybe some of the hair salons would also have nail services, but there wasn't a destination like prior to 1999 where you just walk in and get your nails done.
Because they seem to be everywhere now, manicurists.
Yeah, absolutely.
Were you looking for a business? Because you're a fashion writer.
I was working at Tatler magazine, and I absolutely loved Tatler magazine, and I loved working in fashion. It had always been like my dream to go and work in that industry. But I was concerned by the pay, and I was concerned by the reality of living in London, leading this incredibly glamorous life in magazines, which you do. So you're getting freebie lunches and going to all these amazing destinations and, you know, like designer clothes and just this amazing lifestyle. I remember really early on in my career in magazines just looking at what, you know, how far you needed to go in that company before the pay became manageable.
It's probably the same for journalism everywhere, isn't it?
I think so. And I think the world has changed now, because now it actually in some ways has a real desirability because it's naturally so freelance and work from anywhere, and it's one of the first industries that probably went that way. Right. So I think it does have its own like plus points, and obviously with, you know, rise of social media, there's so many more things you could do with that journalistic skill now, rather than just writing for magazines, which were at the time okay, but it was obvious they were going to decline once digital took over.
So you have parallels with Natalie Massenet.
Yeah, she was in the same team. She was there. She's fantastic. Natalie that set up Net-a-Porter.
Yeah, who started Net-a-Porter.
Yeah.
And I was one of the original backers of Net-a-Porter.
Oh, well done, amazing.
And actually just watching her in action, you know, just because not knowing much about fashion and you know, just ordering something and arriving in this black box with a red ribbon. It was like better than Christmas.
Yeah,
you know.
it was
And then
beautifully
if they didn't
done.
like it, put it back in the box, send it back. I'm like,
Beautifully
what
done.
is this? And then I was with some girls and they're shopping online,
Yeah.
buying all this stuff from Net-a-Porter, and that's when I put more money into the company. I thought, God, they're sitting around saying, buy that, buy that, buy that. Next
Yeah.
day it arrived.
But I guess in the end, that sort of shows you, like, you start off, you know, both Natalie and I started off in journalism. We start off in journalism and where that can take you and what you can actually do. Because really what you're learning in journalism is what people want next. That's what you learn in fashion magazines. I think that when I think about how it's helped me in my business, it's trend forecasting and it's feeling really confident about the fact that you know ahead of other people what women are going to want next.
Well, you know, before we sat down, I was talking about the colour of my watch, which you liked, which is just a complete coincidence. And then I said to you, what should I wear in winter then? Because you said that's for summer. And you came back immediately with olive green. I'm like, it was like you straight away. So you're on top of every. Is olive green with a watch strand? Is that just for this season, or is that likely to change, or is that a perennial advice?
I think that's a perennial one. I just looked at you in terms of your greens and thought it was
Well, I've got green on
thought it was the right one for you, because I complimented the blue for summer.
But you so by writing about it, I'm just wondering if you know. But by writing about it, do you think you were learning as much writing about it as you were when you were studying it?
I think you are, but I think what you're learning is you're in a magazine. You get part of your role is to tell people what they might want, and so I think what you learn is it's the prediction that you learn, and you get confident in. You sort of start to see these little bubbles of a trend, and you'll see something. You know, you'll see. I'm making this up. You know, like you'll see matcha initially launching in the UK. And you'll see the first matcha place, you know, in some kind of indie style matcha place, and you'll go, that's really interesting. I feel like matcha could be a thing. And then you'll think to yourself, well, why wouldn't matcha be a thing? It's so enormous in Asia. Why wouldn't it be? Why wouldn't Londoners like it? And then you'll be in New York and you'll see 3 matcha bars and you're like, okay, matcha is a thing. And I think what you learn as a journalist is to see those little nuggets of newness and sift out the ones that are nonsense, because there's so many things that launch all the time that are complete disasters, right? And also thinking about more than just beauty or fashion, thinking about what's going on in the environment. So, for example, going back to matcha, which is an interesting example, like matcha, you'd go, matcha is really interesting because people are also looking for good, sustainable energy, and people are working out more, and they've got very busy lifestyles, and matcha is a caffeine that doesn't give you jitters. And so I think it's also thinking about what else is going on in the world of why someone would like, I don't know, I'm wedded to matcha, but why would matcha be right now? Because matcha's been around for years.
I think you're saying it's part of a bigger trend, which is health.
Something else,
health conscious, you know, fast moving.
Exactly, yeah, because you're fast moving, you're health conscious, you want something on wellness. Also with anything new now is, does it visually sell itself well to social media? And actually matcha is beautiful on social media, right? It's beautiful green, there's a whole ritual to it. It actually works incredibly well on social media. So I think it's also thinking about things today, will it translate on social?
Do you think, you know, with a business now, it's so much more important to you know, that in social media, Instagram, etc., is so much part of it, almost
100%.
From before you do it.
When I'm coming up with any innovation for Nails Inc., or, you know, like thinking about future life, you know, I always think you have to end with, I've always been obsessed with the customer anyway. I feel like every idea I've ever had has always started and ended with what the actual customer wants. Otherwise, you're just working in your own bubble. But I think now you're going, what does the customer want, and how will she, usually I'm talking to females, how will that show up on screen? How will that look on your phone? And why will that be desirable to you?
Wow.
So it could be selling benefits about health and wellness, or it could be just visually it's so interesting and it just lends itself so well to camera. But I think it's quite hard today to create a product that isn't camera ready. It's certainly in my industry, and like beauty, if it's not camera desirable, I think it's really tough.
Why do you think there were no sort of nail bars, not manicurists,
Yes.
no nail bars in the UK that late, 1999? I mean, it's a modern world.
Yes, I think that the model in the US was quite different, which was it tended to be sort of families that set it up, where, you know, mothers, daughters, aunties, cousins were all working together, maybe in a first floor premises, and often very short lease terms where they would take a premises in New York, say on a first or second floor, and then when that lease had come up, they go to the next one and the next one, and they just, you know, give their customers a card to say we're moving on.
Like pop-ups almost.
Yeah, it was pretty haphazard. It was a good service, but it was a messy business in the US. And And I guess the reality is there was always another one on the street corner. So if you didn't go to that one, you'd use another one. We didn't have, I don't think we had that pool of employees here where you would have that kind of generational mums and daughters and aunties and cousins are all going to go and work in a salon business together. I don't think, certainly 99, I don't think that sort of pool of people existed here where that would have kind of come about sort of through a family team. So it had to be done differently here. We opened in department stores. So we basically were trying to work out where do we get the most people, the most traffic, and pay the least rent.
You're a journalist?
Yes.
A fashion journalist?
Yes.
You're in the US?
Yeah.
Nails is just one thing you write about,
Yeah.
with all the other fashion things.
Yes.
You see that, and there's this eureka moment. You go, why don't we have those in the UK?
Yeah.
And then how long did you just come back and go the next day you open one?
I carried on working at Tatler magazine because I definitely needed the salary. And started to pull together a business plan, spoke to a number of people, did some focus groups. Focus groups as in we brought groups of women together and asked questions because we definitely had gaps in our own knowledge.
And when you did the focus group,
yes,
because I always say, the first year or something is a research project of a business.
Yes.
Now they call it the minimum viable product, the viable product, test the idea, because ideas are great paper, test the idea as cheaply as possible. And I haven't really found many substitutes for spending money and releasing a product. I mean, because obviously friends and family will always say great idea. Your mum will say great idea, So you've got a bunch of, without being generic, a bunch of women. And you said, would you go to this, nail bar?
What was great was that all the people that we talked about had either never got their nails done, had their nails done for their wedding, but all knew of the fact that either them or someone they knew would have got their nails done in New York. If they'd been on a trip to New York, they probably, did some sightseeing, did some fashion shopping, came back with some trainers from an American brand and got their nails done.
So your market was going to be people who had travelled.
No, it was more that I think it was probably a bit like, the kind of coffee culture when the States had that coffee culture before we had it. I remember being in the States, I think in LA, not in New York, and having a Starbucks coffee or a Seattle coffee company. Was it Seattle Coffee Company? It's one of those. And having that before we had it and wondering why we didn't have it in London and looking forward to the fact that we'd have it. But really, we all had coffee in our house. This was just a different type of experience.
So you came back, you did a focus group, you got positive feedback, you got a lot of optimism, a lot of drive, a lot of discipline. And so what do you do then? What did you find then? Did you go looking for a department store?
So initially we opened in a standalone. So first of all, before then we have to raise money, and we have a series of, we go and, meet some kind of institutional, you work out very quickly it's not going to be anything institutional. It's going to have to be friends, family, other people are going to have to introduce you. A bit like what you were saying with Natalie. We definitely had people like that went, I'll help you out, I'll back you, I like you guys, I think you'll probably turn it into something. Who knows if it'll end up being nails or something else, but I'll we had people that just took a punt on us. And we got lucky with a bank manager that gave us an unsecured loan of 50 grand before we'd raised money, which meant we could actually press play on an initial manufacture, the test stage.
He lent you personally the money?
He lent us 50K.
No, but to the business or to the...
To the business.
Because it's quite different, just so that people listening or watching. Lending to a business is limited company.
Exactly.
If that business
it was a
folds,
limited company.
you never get your money back.
Exactly.
Whereas a person... they might have they've
no
got assets.
personal guarantees. I remember him saying to us, no personal guarantee, no personal guarantees.
How did you sweet talk? Could you still do that?
He stayed our bank manager for years. I honestly think he just at the time he just went, I'm going to take a punt on it. There's something in this where I believe in. I'm going to take the punt. And by the way, we gave him the 50K back in months because we then raised the money. So it was, and we became a long client.
Do you think people can still walk into a bank with an idea?
But I don't think you could have done it then either, right? Textbook-wise, we shouldn't have been able to get 50K. So I don't know if you get it from a bank or somewhere. What I would say to anyone setting up a business is there's a loophole and you can get something that's not something. There'll be something that Claude or Chat now tells you, and you can get something else.
I suppose nowadays you might go into crowdfunding.
You can definitely do it through crowdfunding.
And there'd be a lot of potential customers who go, I like that idea.
Exactly.
50 grand back then, was that enough to start up first?
No, we raised 250 initially, but 50 grand was just literally to press play on the production of the nail polish, because like when you're doing that business plan, there's a moment when you work out what the longest lead time, and for us the longest lead time was the nail polish manufacturer, which was going to take 12 weeks to make, whereas I think we could sign the lease, with kind of 4 to 6 weeks or something to actually go in, get the shop fitting done.
So you need to fit out a premises.
Yeah.
You need to get staff.
Yeah.
And you need product.
Yeah, and product had the longest lead time.
And so you've mentioned that the business idea was from the get-go.
Yeah.
You were going to launch your own product, so it wasn't going to be buying someone else's stuff and providing the service.
We wanted to build a brand.
Would it have been? Aren't you sort of testing two business? I mean, obviously it worked.
Yes,
but aren't you sort of testing two business ideas? What if they love the nail bar but they didn't like your product? You wouldn't know.
Well, the only thing I'd say to you is the margin on beauty product is very high.
Right.
So I don't think that was ever going to be the challenge.
Right.
Your margin on beauty products is 70, 80, 90%.
And is there much variation between the different, knowing what you know? Like, is it hard to make a good one?
Yes, it's hard to. The quality in any beauty product will massively vary from a kind of 1 out of 10 to a 10 or an 11
so
out of 10.
Why were you confident that you would get the 8, 9, 10?
Because we did it like a customer. So we literally sat down with everybody else's nail products, which I do think is quite an interesting way to do a business. We sat with everyone else's nail products and went, this is really great because it dries well. This is really easy to apply. This brush is nice. So if we put all of these positives together and create this in a product, will we have the most supercharged product, and will it be better than all the competition? Yeah. And it was.
And so that was another gap in the market. So the nail polish producers, vendors,
there
companies,
were gaps.
That they hadn't really twigged that there was a better product. You came up with a better product as well.
Well, I think it was all of it. It's a better bottle, a better brush, a better formulation, but it's all of it coming together.
Yeah, but that was something they should have spotted.
Or they would have had, someone might have a great formulation, someone else has got the good brush, and somebody else has got the easy to hold bottle, and someone else has got not all together. I think you don't always have to reinvent the wheel, do you? You just make it better than the last guy did.
Yeah. I mean, do you think those opportunities are still around somewhere?
100%. I think you can look at anything and go, this mic, and go, could this be done better? I think you can look at anything in the world. I think it's such an easy way to get into a business. We said you can import from another place, or you can just look at anything around you and go, is this good enough? Could this be better?
Where did you? So you're going to open the nail bar when you've got the product coming in. Did you have order? Where did it come from? And was it a big shipment?
It was that was like mistake number one, the amount of nail polish that arrived to this store. I don't think I'd ever really thought about. I think it was like 5,000 bottles per shade, and we must have launched with like 60 shades. And it didn't fit in the stock room, and we had to get away. That's like mistake one. You immediately have to get a warehouse. You've now got a cost of a warehouse, and you've only got one store.
And so that was something you...
We got it wrong. I didn't even think I'd ever logically... In my mind, I really thought that nail polish was small, and I never logically thought about the gap between the amount of nail polish we'd ordered and the size of that stock room. No, I just hadn't. I remember it arriving. I remember the pallets arriving and standing outside going, I've got this so wrong. Plus, also, where am I selling all this to? I remember looking at it thinking, this is so many days and weeks of sales to get... Yeah, we had a lot of nail polish.
Golly, I mean, I've done something similar. The tennis racket company, I was so confident it was going to work. I had 10,000 tennis rackets made, and that's a lot of tennis rackets.
Yeah, that's when I think it really hits, doesn't it, when the first customer comes through the door and they buy one, and you go, oh my God, I need 9,999 more of them. But mine was across like 50, 60 shades. I was like, oh my goodness, I need so many customers.
And then were you confident about which of those shades was going to succeed?
Yes, weirdly, I think we got that quite right. I mean, we had a minimum order on all the products, so we had the same quantity of every shade. But I think our view on what was going to be a top seller was accurate, and that was correct.
So
both the services and the products.
The reason you ordered so much, you mentioned minimum volumes. Where did you get it made?
We originally got it made in the UK and Scotland. Oh, okay. And then we moved it to Paris manufacturing later.
But it must have been quite. Everyone runs off to Asia to get stuff made now, and I had a business, actually one of Dragon's Den business, but he was, which didn't work out in the end, but it was an egg cooker business, and he wanted to go to China. I'm like, let's just get this machines made here, because we're almost prototype volume. Let's just get it done here, because a number of advantages, even if we pay double, for the same time zone, no traveling, same language, first language, just be so much easier. Everyone wants to run off. But it's a lot of advantages doing it back in the UK.
I think so, and also, as I've gone through the kind of beauty journey of Nails Inc., actually the European quality on beauty products is higher.
So you got this massive supply and got a bit of a shock.
Yes.
And then where was your first nail bar?
First nail bar was South Molton Street in the West End, with the idea of that it was a shopping area, but it was also somewhere people cut through on their way to work.
So you're like a single store?
Single store, and the aim was that, you would grab your Starbucks or it was Coffee Republic then, you would grab your Coffee Republic coffee and you would go and get your nails done, and that whole process, or you grab your lunch, it would all take you half an hour, because the manicures were 15 minutes.
Oh, okay.
That was the difference versus what had happened in the UK before. It was all about speed and efficiency, lunchtime stopping. You had enough time to grab a salad, grab a coffee, and get your nails done in an hour window.
Wow. So it must have been exciting opening the first store the first day.
Mad, absolutely.
Were you working there?
Yeah, we were all in there. It was absolutely crazy, and we had, it was like a phenomenon in the UK. And so we had, queues of people waiting for a 15-minute manicure. We had like TV, being filmed. It was properly balmy.
Well, hang on. You must. That's your other, your journalism skill set.
Yes.
To get TV there. I mean, how do you how can you get TV to the opening of a store?
We did. We did. We got TV and lots of journal. Yeah, I mean, obviously I'd worked at Condé Nast, so we definitely got good. We got good magazine and press coverage.
So were you still working there when you opened it?
No, I think I stopped just in time, yeah.
And but you got on the phone to all your mates and you've got to talk about this, got to write about this.
Yeah, I think so. We definitely got good coverage. I think you also learn what a journalist needs from you to write a good story. So we released a press release and samples, and we also went and did desk sides. So we went to different magazines and newspapers before the business launched and explained what the business was going to be.
And people would agree to see. Would agree that to anybody, or just because you knew them and you got credibility?
No, I think they'd agree it to anyone that has a new interesting idea. In beauty, you sample a huge amount of product, and most of what a journalist receives they won't write about. They'll just get so much product. Same with influencers today, and they'll hand sift and pick, and what you need to do is cut through that and send something that is really a news story and a reason that forces people to have to talk about it. So whether it's talking to influencers or press, it's the same. Why do you have to talk about this new thing? And you've really got to tell people that you're reinventing something and you've created something completely new, and that I'm not just selling you a nail polish anymore. I'm sending you this whole freedom for women, that women can now get their nails done at lunchtime and be in an office and celebrate the fact that they're enjoying beauty, and it's actually something to be really positive about, rather than kind of hiding that you're female. It was that real moment of celebrate the fact that you're female and that you've got blue nails or red nail polish, and be proud of that and get that done at lunchtime, and tell your male boss you've done that, because you have an hour off anyway. Celebrate it.
In a way, you saw the profitability of the business was the product, the nail varnish.
Definitely.
But the story, the unique story was the nail bars.
The story in the magazine and the journalist hook was definitely the nail bars, and the profit was always the product.
Wow.
Service is tough. As I'm sure you've had service businesses. Service businesses are tough to they're so people, labour intensive. You're so reliant on people being there on time, doing this 15-minute manicure. It's like working in a restaurant. It's really tough, really tough business to run.
Yes. Did you ever have anyone leave to start up a competing business?
No. I think actually everyone that worked at Nails Inc. saw how bloody hard it was. I don't think anyone wanted to do it.
And when you had the idea and you came back from the US and you had this idea, I get so many people who approach me in business with an idea, and they're like, "I've got this idea," right? And they're like, meet on the corner, wear a disguise, there's a password, they're so precious with this idea, and I'm like, and they want me to sign like a 15-page NDA, which I've ever done anything slightly similar. There's no way I can sign an NDA for a stranger, whatever. Anyway, but they're so worried about this idea, and I'm like,
relax,
please relax, because not going to nick your idea. I'm not going to do it, right? Because there's so many, the idea is just a tiny little seed.
1%,
it's
isn't it?
worth nothing. It's not,
It's nothing.
it's all in front of you, so the idea, don't worry. Don't worry about the Uber driver overhearing your conversation.
I know.
It's not going to be taken. But
No.
but particularly new entrepreneurs are so worried about that idea. So I was just wondering, when you came back, you must have been like, I hope no one else spots these nail bars.
No, well, actually, we had competitors that opened up similar time to us. I think, funnily enough, you learn it through experience. It just doesn't matter, does it?
No.
If you have a great idea, I mean, like you think about the coffee shops, there's like 3 or 4 brands that all opened at the same time. With us, we had 2 brands that opened up similar time to us. And the difference is they didn't have product. They just had service. And service is a really tough business to make money.
So did that mean, because you were a product business as well as a service business,
Yeah.
and there was big margins in the product
We
side.
won that race just because the product.
Did that mean that you could sort of almost take a loss on the manicures?
Yeah, we could, and at a point in time, like years later, department stores became very quiet. Like department stores, lost their shine, and they weren't. In a number of department stores closed. House of Fraser department stores closed. Debenhams department stores closed, and those department stores, were quieter in terms of footfall, but we were building the product and the brand elsewhere that allowed us to also keep some non-profitable nail bars for a period of time. We in the end closed them, but we kept them for a period of time whilst we were building the brand.
Right.
Because it was sort of trying to get to a point where you go, the product and the brand is big enough, and the consumers, you're sort of nervous to close something and for people to think you've actually closed the business down. So you don't want to close the nail bars down. Everyone thinks Nails Inc.'s gone away because that's their interaction with Nails Inc.
Yeah.
So you want to know, just outside of just .com, that there's enough places that people can get to and buy and see the product.
Did you have to iterate the product a few times, or were you happy with it straight away?
The product was good on day one. The product was good in terms of we just looked at everyone else's product and went, let's do it better.
Wow.
It is that simple, which is, unless I'm just not, an inventor. I think it takes true genius, doesn't it, for someone to, like Dyson, to invent something, so new.
Well, that's a mechanical product, but
and it's still a better Hoover, right? But it's,
yeah.
But it's
creative genius, isn't it?
Creative genius. But I think it's that. But I think for most of us, an easy way to come up with a business idea is to look what already exists and just say, could it be done better?
Yeah, well, I think so much of life is spotting patterns.
Yes,
and
I
if you're
agree.
exposed to something enough, you should be able to see, or you will start to see patterns, and it's almost like
agree.
human AI or intuition.
That's the journalist thing. That's the spotting patterns.
Right.
It is that. I think it is spotting patterns. Going, I've seen that once before. Remind myself what that. Okay, yes, that is a thing.
Yes,
it is patterns.
And so you've got that first store. It's it's a success from day one. It's on. You got media coverage.
Yeah.
And then what happened then?
We then rolled out a number of stores. So I think we did 3 stores, 2 more so that was West End, 2 in the city, 1 in Canary Wharf.
This is how much later?
All within this first year. We opened 4 stores.
And the first one was profitable, with including products. The business was profitable.
The first one was not profitable because the amount of product and things we'd ordered. No, we had some overheads in that business. We'd also, we'd sunk in some fixed costs in terms of rent deposits and different things. But the actual store itself, on an operating level, was profitable.
And that gave you the confidence to raise more money to expand?
No, we did everything with just that amount of money that we had. So we literally just did deals all over the place. We didn't then give any more rent deposits away because we didn't have the cash.
So what sort of deals, and how do you do these deals?
So just we would then, the next one was, let's say, Canary Wharf. Yeah. And so we couldn't give them, a lump sum of cash. But
did they have confidence because they saw your existing business?
They'd seen it, and also, Canary Wharf's an interesting one, which is it's just like thousands of people upstairs working that all flood down into Canary Wharf shopping centre, in commuter hours twice a day, plus lunchtime, and obviously people have different lunchtime windows. What we became known for quickly was we were actually quite good at creating theatre. There's something visually quite nice, hairdressers are the same, nail bars are the same. It's visually quite a nice experience to see women getting their nails done. It's quite theatrical, and that's why we were then approached by department stores, because actually, they didn't necessarily want us to do pedicures and have feet out, but they were very happy to have a nail bar for women to sit at a nail bar, have a coffee, have a glass of water, a juice, and get their nails done. It's actually visually quite appealing. It's quite theatrical. So I think we won business really by having this, which we never knew it was going to look theatrical. I'd never even thought about it, but it did look it looked like a hive of activity, which is what if you've got a department store, you want that hub.
Yeah, and also maybe people staying in one place for a moment rather than just rushing around like a train station, tube station.
Yeah.
Having people sit there chatting away and enjoying themselves. It makes it seem more like a place to go.
And a bit like your home house thing, there's a reason why you'd then come back into the department store. Because I remember when I first met Phoenix, which is our first department store, asking them how many times people came to Phoenix, like how many times does a good customer come to Phoenix? And it was 2.5 times a year. And I was like, wow, your best customers come 2.5 times a year.
So not really a customer base. It's just new customers almost.
But they'll spend a lot of money 2.5 times a year. They maybe buy their summer wardrobe and their winter wardrobe and then pop in another time to buy some beauty. But they're not coming every month, which is probably what I thought was probably the same customer would go to Phoenix monthly. So it was different. And so we're now saying we can get customers to come every week to get their nails done. And even if they don't come every week and they hold it every 2 weeks or every month, that's very different to what you currently have. And the only place in the store, because it was Phoenix at the time, the only place where they got people more regularly than that was they had a Joe's Cafe. Do you remember the Joseph Cafe? And that had a more frequent, customer because people when we would meet and have lunch in the same place. So I think that's why retailers suddenly quite liked us, because we'd bring people in and we looked theatrical and active.
Yeah, and so you said that they approached you.
Yeah, Phoenix approached us. Yeah.
So you didn't. It wasn't like, let's get department stores. We'll go and find one.
No, we'd never thought about department stores. We had only ever thought about standalone stores.
Wow.
And I remember as we were doing South Moulton Street and we had kind of Canary Wharf and Bishopsgate coming up, we were having this challenge, which is, God, we're going to need to just keep raising so much cash if we need to keep doing these rent deposits. It's too much cash every time that we're doing it, and the fit out costs of we weren't taking over an existing nail bar, we were taking over a coffee shop or whatever, and having to strip it out and do it all, and even though the shop fit was relatively affordable, it was still a lot of money. And then we met department stores and we met Phoenix. We were like, wow, this is amazing. So you've already got all this infrastructure, and all we actually need to really put in here is tables and shelves. Like everything else exists. The floor's here, the ceiling's here, the lights are here. You pay the electricity bill. I remember all of those moments going, you pay the electricity bill. Like all those things that you've never really thought about when you're first setting up a business.
Secure lockup and all that kind of everything.
And even, by the way, they're even going to help manage your staff, right? Someone's not there at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. Department store's going to call you.
Yes.
Tell you someone's not here.
Wow. So that must have been a happy day when you got that approach.
The department store sort of changed everything for us. And the only reason we won department stores versus the other two competitors is because we had product. So that's what really set us apart, is we could then sell products. So we belonged in a beauty hall.
Wow. And so that first department store, what happened then?
Department store changed everything because it just meant it was so much more cost effective. I think we also realised as well there was a bit of power with us. Like, when you're first an entrepreneur, you just apologise for everything constantly, don't you? Because everything just goes wrong all the time. You're just so sorry. You're so sorry to the customers. You're so sorry to the staff. You're so sorry. Everything's just not working initially. And then I think in department stores we went, this all makes sense because the department stores now need us as much as we need them. Mm-hmm. And so actually, can we now go to department stores? Can we go to House of Fraser and Debenhams or Harvey Nichols or Selfridges and actually try and negotiate better terms, multiple stores, and is this how we're going to grow the brand?
So how much later are we?
And then we roll out very quickly. We go through the department stores. We rolled out over the pace of probably 10 years in terms of like multiple nail bars. But yes, we rolled out. We got to, I think, 10 nail bars in the first 2 and a bit years. So that
must have felt like a steam train, like a locomotive.
It was going
like
fast.
It was going.
If I was doing it again, it was going too fast.
Did you ever have any bad times? Did you ever feel like giving up?
Loads. Oh my God, I felt like giving up a million times.
Oh, really? It sounds like just success A to Z.
No. Totally not. No. I think managing and running people was so much more complicated than I thought. Managing and running people that may want to only stay working with you for 6 months or 12 months when you were trying to create this vision and create a brand that was really had lasting appeal was really challenging. Working in other people's businesses, so department stores were amazing, but you're also working in somebody else's business with somebody else's rules and regulations, and so that came with so many positives, but also lots of challenges along the way as we were learning and getting a lot of things wrong. You're publicly getting things wrong, and honestly, there was 1,000 times when I wanted to quit. I would say the first 10 years of Nails Inc. felt like every month something was coming to. Yeah. There was a cost you hadn't thought of. There was a challenge, there was a department store that wasn't happy about something or needed to change your location from your best location where you were suddenly hitting your highest revenue, and they were so pleased with your numbers that they think that actually you can make any location work, and so they move you to the back of the store. They're like, you're so
want
great.
You to raise that profile.
You're so great. So you can go to the back of the store. Hold on a minute. If I'm so great, can I stay at the front of the store?
Yeah.
You know, because actually you've still got all the same costs, and it's the same effort to run the things that are going badly as the things that go brilliantly. I think, you know, you can run something very small, you run something very big. It's a lot of the time it's the same volume of work, isn't it?
What about funding? You know, so you mentioned you raised money.
Yeah.
You know, were you ever squeezed? You know, I was talking on the show to the founder of Trunky,
yes,
who was on the Dragon's Den. Which is a big success, but you know they had funding problems. You know, a successful business can almost die because it's too successful because of inventory and cost building up.
Yeah.
Did you ever have like squeezes with cash because you're suddenly expanding so quickly?
Yeah, we did, but I remember I always had really great finance people in the business because I wasn't from a finance background. I always had really great finance people, and I remember a wise finance person saying to me really early on, "If it's a really good idea, you'll be able to fund it. So just relax about that." He went, just like take that off your list of. He went, and if you can't, you've probably not got the right me kind of person in here, because if you've got Sephora in the US that are prepared to launch 300 stores and want your nail polish, you should be able to fund that. There should be a way to fund that, because that's a hell of an opportunity. It's all the products that you already sell in Boots that you know are your top sellers. It really would be quite complicated for that to fail. Something's got to go very wrong. So you should be able to fund it. And I think early on he gave me that confidence where I was like, you can fund. And if you can't fund it, was it really a good idea? Because
so you can fund a good idea, you think?
I think you can always fund a good idea. Do you not?
It's probably... You know, with some companies which need to make a loss for 4 or 5 years,
harder.
It's very hard in the UK. You know, compared to say the US. So, you know, launching Netflix here may have been very difficult.
Yes.
You know, if you're trying to globally expand and have a loss for 10 years or whatever it was.
Yeah.
You know, whereas in the US they seem to have a different. So that something like that might be hard. But the sort of smaller scale stuff you probably can. What do you see as the big trends in the beauty industry? In the nail industry, but in the beauty industry in general?
I just think wellness. I think everything now is connecting into wellness. So I think, you know, in the nail industry specifically, it would all be about nail health. And I think in beauty, it's like how you combine wellness and beauty together. I think it's self-care rituals. It's people looking after themselves and incorporating wellness and fitness into everything you're doing. So I think whether it's new technologies or how consumers are interacting with products or searching things up through AI, everything's got a wellness angle. I personally think like just colour cosmetics for the sake of colour cosmetics with no added benefits, with no wellness, with no skincare benefits is a bit dull. I feel like we can do better now, and it needs to have a positive impact in terms of your wellness, your longevity, something else. Well,
very briefly, but I tried to launch a hair care company, and we failed.
And
it was technology out of Leeds University. I've loved taking stuff out of universities. And it was hair dye, which almost any colour, and it was, and you know, because hair dyes are notoriously potentially carcinogenic. There's a high rate of cancer with hairdressers, but it was hair dye that can almost be any colour, and instead of being dangerous, it's almost like you could drink it like a vegetable juice. So and the other thing was, if you dye your hair, and I don't dye my hair, but if you dye your hair and undye it or change the colour, you know, it makes the hair brittle. So the hair dye would sort of lock onto the hair, but could equally unlock by using the counter chemical, could unlock. And we got so much interest. It's one of these sort of companies which I've had before, where you get so much interest from the industry. Everyone is raving about it. Hair companies are giving it trials, right? But it didn't succeed, and you still don't know why. You know, it's one of those things of there's frustration.
Sounds clever.
Very excited about it, but it never got across the line. So I'm still in the dark.
When was that?
5 years ago.
I mean, I would say that beauty, even most recently, in the last 5 years, and certainly in the last year, customers are looking for less toxic product. That kind of no tox is like really trending. I wonder if you were a little bit early. But I think it sounds like a great idea.
So final question, really. But you sold the business.
Yes.
And was it a sort of financial sale, like, oh yeah, that's great money, I'll take it, or was it like, oh, my job is done, my journey is, that chapter of my life's closed?
Both. I definitely wanted to do something else because I've been doing Nails Inc. for such a long time. So I think the ambition to do something else, to create another brand, another business at a point in time, and then financially to cash in on 20 odd years of work.
It's been fantastic chatting to you, Thea. I really am inspired by your story.
Thank you.
And it's very interesting just how you managed to join dot after dot and do it methodically and disciplined and with imagination. So
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing the story.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Thea.